Hey guys, this is Brass Check, and we're recording this on Wednesday, March 4th, and I'm back. If I seem if I seem to have a tan, it's because I do. My wife insisted that we leave the frigid north and go south for a few days or a week. Excuse me. Um, we ended up staying nearly 3 weeks. We went to Mexico. Yes, we were down there when El Mencho uh, uh, got terminated. And believe it or not, it was a flip of the coin. We were in a place called San Miguel, which is Guanajuato. Very nice town indeed. And we spent about 10 days there, and we both know Mexico pretty well, and we wanted to move on. And it was a flip of the coin. We were either going to go to Guadalajara or go to Mexico. And if we went to Guadalajara, we were going to go to a place called Talpalpa. And you can ask my wife, long before the shootout took place, I was telling her about the wonders of Talpalpa, a place that I've been. It's about 2 hours south of Guadalajara. It's in the mountains. It's literally the freshest air I've ever breathed in my life. It's a beautifully rustic place. People literally come off their ranches by horseback, tie them up in the town square, go shopping, and ride their groceries home. I mean, not everybody does that, but there are people that do that. I mean, it's like the old West, and really love it. Well, that happens to be where El Mencho got taken down, and we ended up going to Mexico City, um, and so we missed the fireworks. But we would have been in Talpalpa. We would have seen or heard the helicopters come in, and probably wouldn't have been a comfortable place to be. So I'm glad that we were in the big city. Nothing happened in Mexico City. Um, just a bunch of guys riding around, cops riding around, machine guns. But that's just par for the course. Um, but anyway, today I wanted to get into something. Still working on the book. I've just here's what I've done. Um, I realize that Diabolical Errors is really like a magnum opus. It's a huge undertaking. And rather than drive myself crazy trying to finish it by a fixed deadline, I've decided to carve out a portion of it and put that book out much sooner. And the book is specifically on vaccination and specifically on extreme severe autism, which is one of the most unreported realities in the medical world. And the name of that book is the name of the book is very simple: The Reality of Vaccine Injury and Severe Autism. And I'm literally half done. I have two more big parts to put together. One of them I'm just moving stuff from the other book, so I've got to just rewrite it a little bit, and then I've got to rewrite again, I've got to write the fourth part from scratch. So I don't know. Am I 2 months away? I don't know. I hope I am. um, but that's going to be a very powerful. I'll tell you right now, it's already a very powerful book. Uh, you'll see. Nobody's ever written anything like it. I absolutely demolished the excuse me. Well, it is an injury. The vaccine industry in ways that nobody else has ever done before so thoroughly. And I've read all the books. So I'm glad it's coming out. It's time it's coming out. I've got maybe another 300 hours of work before I'm done, but then I will be done and the book will be born. And then I'm going to go back to the other book, Diabolical Errors, which is shaping up to be basically the history of modern medicine. Um, and it shows what an absolute shit show it's been. They're very good at patting themselves on the back. They're not very good at remembering or recording or disseminating the disasters they've created. And believe me, COVID, um, just another day at the office for these guys. They have been creating public health catastrophes as far back as we know. But it's unfortunately with the industrialization of the world, it's getting worse, not better. All right, but anyway, that's an update. I want to give you some new news. You've noticed we've been putting out a lot of videos lately, mostly from other people, because there's just some really great stuff that's being done. By the way, I think anybody that saw my interview with Sabby Sabs 4 days after Charlie Kirk was shot realized that I nailed it 4 days in. I even said, whoever did this knew what Charlie Kirk was saying to his wife in bed. I said that 4 days. I mean, I didn't know all the details, but you see enough patterns over the decades, and you know how things work. And I didn't even know who Erica Kirk was. I just knew that, yeah, this was a setup, and basically it was a coup. Um, and that's not what today's call is about. But if you want to know what happened, and we really should never forget what happened, whether you like Charlie Kirk or hate him or didn't know anything about him, he had a right to live. He had a right not to be shot to death. He had a right to pursue, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and share his ideas. And basically, a coup, which involved Erica Kirk, this other guy, Andrew Colbert, or whatever his name is, um, Mickey McCoy's father, that bogus security guy that appeared on the Sean Ryan show, who was lying through his teeth. I don't know why that idiot got on a podcast. I mean, he hung himself, but they're all going to get away with it. As I said on the Sabby Sab show 4 days after Charlie Kirk was shot, I said this is going to be just like Kennedy, the FBI. Believe me, when I was listening to this former gangster guy the other day, and he said when the FBI wants to get you, they get you. And this is some, street hardened dude, who's seen it all. Um, and when the FBI wants to fuck up and not get you, they're really good at that. It was very obvious from day one. They had no interest in figuring out who actually shot Charlie Kirk because it was obviously one of their guys, either directly or one of their affiliates, or they were given the order to protect and cover up the actual murder. And why was he killed? Well, Kirk was against a blank check to Israel. Kirk was against attacking Iran. Kirk was against promoting the endless Ukraine war, paying for, not promoting, paying for. It's a big difference. One thing to applaud from the sidelines, it's another thing to write multi-billion-dollar checks every other day. And that's what we were doing. We're everyone who gets killed and injured in Ukraine is being killed and injured by an American tax dollar. That's that. And Kirk believed that. He had a lot of other attitudes I didn't necessarily agree with. Young guy, you got to cut young guys slack. Was he 31, 32? People mature, people learn. He was learning, he was maturing, and that's why he had to go, because they had elevated him to the leadership position of a vast enterprise. As I mentioned on the Sabby Sab show 4 days out, all these other people, even what's her name, Candace Owens, she's finally figuring it out 6 months later. With her huge staff and everything. This was a huge, I mean, she even knew it was a huge organization. And it took her months to start putting the pieces together. But, if you're a Brass Check viewer and you watch that original program, which we rebroadcast, we nailed it right out of the gate. This was a big, powerful political organization, completely fused with the Christian Zionist movement. And to have their leader say, I don't think Christian Zionism is such a good idea, you're dead. You are dead. And surrounding him were a bunch of people, a bunch of vampires, including his wife, apparently, who were just ready to pounce, take the organization over, line their pockets, lie about his legacy, lie about what he believed, lie about what he thought was important, and just hijack the enterprise, the coup. And they will find millions and millions of useful idiots among the so-called Christians who somehow believe the Bible justifies the murder of infants on behalf of the state of Israel. Wow! And they quote scripture about that. I mean, you can quote. I mean, you got to be kidding me! But they do it, and there's millions of them, and they are the problem. They are the problem. Without those idiots, there would be no mass slaughter in Gaza, which goes on to this minute. It's off the people's radar screens. And they counted on it. They counted on people getting exhausted, getting distracted. But right now, where we're watching this, I mean, I don't even want to say the horrors that are going on. One by one by one, lives snuffed out, lives amputated. Um, and the Christian Zionists are making it possible, along with our dirtbag politicians and our dirtbag news media. By the way, this Iran thing, it's not going that well. We put a video out a couple of days ago about that. Yeah, U.S. news media is going to tell you how great it's going. Um, I don't think it's going so great. And boots on the ground? Are you kidding me? Iran is 3 times the size of Iraq. We couldn't hold on to Iraq 3 times. It may even be bigger, but it's at least 3 times. And it's mountainous. We haven't been degrading the Iranian economy and the Iranian military the way we were degrading the Iraqi civil uh, society for. I mean, what was Clinton doing? He was bombing water purification plants, bombing electrical facilities, bombing all the infrastructure of life, and he was doing that throughout his entire um, administration. The great Bill Clinton, a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. No, we haven't been doing that to Iran. Iran's been sitting back, and Iran's got a lot more oil, and they've just been sitting back, building up a bunch of armament. I'm sure they're getting help from the Chinese. I'm sure they're getting help from the Russians. Um, and looks like they're hitting Israel at will. Like they can hit any target they want, anytime they want, and the Israelis are absolutely useless in defending themselves. So, as I mentioned, I think in the email, Napoleon invaded Russia because he was so great. Didn't work well. Hitler invaded Russia too. Didn't work that well because he thought he was real great. U.S., the neocons, including Trump and all the other, um, anti-American, Israel first traitors. Um, yeah, they thought it would be great to start a shooting war with Iran in Iran's backyard. We'll see how that turns out. I feel very sorry for the families that have servicemen and women over there. Um, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing, and I don't think it's going to end well. All right, but here's what I want to talk about today because this is unbelievable. Some of this I got from somebody else, but a lot of this comes from me. But I needed that little extra piece to put it all together. And believe it or not, it has to do with Jeffrey Epstein and 9/11. 9/11. There are connections. The first thing, and this is something that somebody hit me to, I mean, it's obvious if you look, but I didn't look, I didn't see it. When you look at all the different files that have been released in all the different years, there's a huge gap. Guess where it is? Late 1999 to late 2001. A very critical period. It's like, oh yeah, this we have this many files and this many files and this, and then you get to 2000 and 2001, and we've got this many files. And one of the pictures they retracted recently. And the great thing about liars is they tell you the truth by lying. Once you know that they're lying, you get a big indication of what the real truth is. That's how I've always done my investigations, and that's why I'm rarely wrong. Not because I'm so smart, but because liars just expose themselves, right? So let's look at the connections between. So that's the first bit of a smoke from the smoking gun. Where are the files from where are the Jeffrey Epstein files from 2000, 2001, and 2002? Where are they? Why weren't they released? What's in them that's so bad? All right, let's find out. Um, a lot of people that follow 9/11 have heard of Cantor Fitzgerald. Cantor Fitzgerald. They had at least 2 floors in one of the towers. They had one of the biggest losses. Let me give you the exact number. Do I have it here? 658. They lost 658 employees. That's almost 20% of everybody that died that day. What did they do for, what was that business? They lost everybody pretty much. Anybody that was at work, which was everybody except one person. Um, they are treasury bond dealers, market makers, and so on. Big, huge marketplace, trillions of dollars of marketplace. Let me cut to the chase. Very easy way to launder money, huge amounts of money. And even the FBI suspected that perhaps they were helping launder money for the Russian mob. Um, Anyway, the head of Cantor Fitzgerald is, drumroll please, Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick. Does that name ring a bell? This is during 9/11. He was head of CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. Howard Lutnick. You can Google him and see his picture. You probably don't see him in the news much because he's smart enough to keep his head down. He looks like a thug. He looks like a gangster. He looks like a criminal. Um, he was CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald when it got hit. Um, what do we know about him? Well, he wasn't at work that day. And along with his buddy, Larry Silverstein, and they were buddies. Um, his cover story is that his wife said, "You've got to do this particular errand." In the case of Silverstein, it was, "Oh, you gotta, go to the dermatologist because you got some little growth on your face." In the case of Lutnick, is we got to take your little son to kindergarten. Those are the cover stories because those guys they worked in the towers. Silverstein held court in Windows on the World, and uh, uh, Lutnick, his office was there. His office was there, and they just happened not to be at work. Now, do Lutnick and Silverstein know each other? So let me give you some of the ways um, they know each other. Um, Number one, Lutnick was one of the biggest tenants at in the World Trade Center complex. He didn't have a suite of offices; he had floors of offices. Okay, you better believe Mr. Silverstein knew who his big tenants were. Okay, but that's not all. We talked about Larry Silverstein way back. Who's, among other things, besides being a crazed Zionist, he was one of the biggest promoters of Israel bonds. Israel bonds. And I did a little deep dive into Israel bonds, and I can tell you this. They are like no other sovereign bonds in the world. The SEC gave them some special dispensation. They've made it very easy to break the bonds into small denominations and sell them directly to the retail public, mostly Jewish people, Zionists. Um, and that's been going on since the 1950s. So the US government has actually facilitated Israel using their bond program to raise money to perpetuate their mayhem in the Middle East. Starting in the 50s, remember in 48, they killed many, many people, displaced, I think 800,000. But by displaced, it means burn down their houses and put them out on the road. Okay, we're not talking about, a weekend away. Think about your house or your town being burned to the ground by armed men and you being put on the highway with whatever you could carry. That's what the Israelis did to 800,000 people in 1948. Let's be concrete in our thinking. So, in any event, the U.S. has been helping, and Larry Silverstein has been buying and promoting other genocidals, maniacs to buy the bonds. Guess who makes the market for Israel bonds in the United States? One of the biggest market makers is Cantor Fitzgerald and Mr. Lutnick, Mr. Lutnick, Mr. Howard Lutnick. So that's two ways that Silverstein and Lutnick know each other very well. Biggest tenant, well, one of the biggest tenants in the World Trade Center, and also um, big participants in the sketchy Israeli bond program. All right, so that's kind of interesting. Here's something that's unbelievably interesting. Everybody knows about the infamous Jeffrey Epstein mansion, right? Okay, it's on I think 71st Street. Guess who has the mansion not in the same neighborhood, not in the same block, not on the same side of the street, right next door? Okay, that would be Howard Lutnick. They were, I mean, and in New York, when you're a neighbor, it's like this. It's not like, you're 1 acre and your acre. No, it's like this. They were neighbors since the late 90s, I believe. It's a long period of time. Next door neighbors. You might say, well, it's just a coincidence. Guess who Ludnick bought the property from for $10? Mr. Wexner, the same guy that sold Jeffrey Epstein his building. Oops, wait a minute. What? Really? Oh yeah. Yeah. So not only were Epstein and Lutnick neighbors, they both acquired their property for, I mean, how would you like to have a multi-story, multi-room mansion in the Upper East Side of Manhattan for, I think Epstein paid $1 for his. Lutnick had to pay $10. He does, no one asks him to explain it, but that's the deal. Did they know each other? Well, they were neighbors. They were in finance. They were over the top supporters of the Zionist genocidal state. Um, he bought a building from Wexner, who Epstein bought the building from. They were on some business deals together. They invested together in an entity that only had 8 other investors. But that doesn't mean they knew each other, even though they lived next door for, almost 20 years before Epstein was taken out. Did they know each other? They sure did know each other. He appears in the Epstein files. Do I have it written down? 239 times. But remember, the files from the key years 2000 and 2001, and a little bit of 2002, a little bit of 2000, 1999. Um, they're missing. They haven't been released. So we don't know. Maybe there's a lot more references to Libnick. Maybe there's a whole lot of communication between those two. We just don't know. We know though, it is 239 times. So that's interesting. Now, did Libnick ever go to the island? Well, I only went and I brought my family. Well, there's a photo, and the photo does not show a family. It shows Libnick and Epstein and some other people just cavorting around. That picture, by the way, I'm told, I've got it, and here it is. Um, that picture was removed from the internet, um, but here it is. So you can take a look, and there's Lidnick and Jeffrey Epstein. They're having a good old time on the island. How many times did Lidnick go to the island? Who knows? Nobody knows, but he admits to at least one time. So that's pretty interesting. Um, what else? Oh, so we talked about Cantor Fitzgerald being suspected by the FBI of being a money launderer for numerous criminal enterprises, including the Russian mob. Um, guess what else Lipnick is a huge advocate of and has been for a long, long time? Um, he is Mr. Crypto. He's probably one of the top 10. Well, now, for reasons I'll explain in a second, he's probably the most important person in the whole crypto industry. And I know there's some people out there that think crypto is the salvation of mankind and will break the yoke of the financial system, and it's going to be private money, and it's going to cross borders, and it's going to be private. Um, it's going to be fast. Well, it turned out not to be private at all. Not private at all. It's the most traceable money in the world. It's the most inefficient thing. If you want to buy a loaf of bread or something, it's absolutely useless. It turns out to be very good for what? Money laundering. And so Mr. Ludnick, who apparently operated a money launderer bond company for the Russian mob and God knows who else, was has enthusiastically embraced crypto. What else has he managed to do? Oh, he's now the U.S. Secretary of Commerce under Donald Trump. Yeah. So he's at a whole new level. And guess what Donald Trump, among his many amazing accomplishments, um, has never done? He's never questioned the 9/11 story. Never. In fact, he continues to this late date to promote the lie, the blatant lie, that when Palestinians heard about the towers being blown up, did I say blown up? Oh, hit by planes, um, that they were cheering in the streets. That's been absolutely debunked. It's an absolute falsehood. It's easy to know it's a falsehood if you care. And the only people that continue to promote it are liars who are helping cover the tracks of potential tracks of the great state of Israel. and their involvement in 9/11. So it's all falling into place. So many things with Mr. Ludnick. So many things. Now, a lot of them they're circumstantial. Oh, this is so fascinating. The person when Ludnick got his sweetheart deal, when you do a real estate deal, what do you need? You need a notary. It's not a big job, but you get a license and you go and you sign the paper. The notary just happens to be the very same guy who happened to have a camcorder down in downtown Manhattan just when the plane supposedly hit the first tower. He's the only guy, or maybe there might be some other people now, but he was the guy that had the footage that proved that it was a jet airline and not an explosion coming from within inside the building. Happens to be the same guy that was the notary on the deal in which Ludnick got the building from Wexner for $10. Building back then that was worth at least 50 million, maybe more. And this is Wexner, who happened to run Cantor Fitzgerald, that was suspected of being a money launderer. He happened to not go to work that day, but 600 plus of his employees were at work where they belonged, and they were murdered that day. He was, I don't know if he was best buddies with Silverstein, but he was Silverstein's biggest tenant. And believe me, if someone's your biggest tenant, you know them. And they were also compatriots in helping move Israeli bonds. So a lot of connections between our current Secretary of Commerce and 9/11 and Jeffrey Epstein. And again, we have to wonder, why are the files from 2000, 2001, and part of 2002 and 2000 and 1999, why are they not present? Again, it's like these years, lots of lots of lots of lots of, you get to 2000, 2001, 2002, and then all of a sudden, lots of lots of lots of lots of. Well, why aren't they releasing those? And why did they put up a picture of Ludnick and Epstein on the island without family, without children, and then take it down? So there's a lot of problems with the various cover stories. So I wanted to share that with you. Some of it came from another investigator, particularly the file stuff and the fact that the building that Ludnick lived in, right next to Epstein, came from Wexner. I didn't know that, but all the other stuff um, I've been aware of. The Israeli bond angle is something that I don't think anybody knows at all. I've never heard anybody else talk about Israeli bonds ever, but they are kind of the glue that connects a lot of these people, like Ludnick and Silverstein, and probably Wexner too. I'm sure he's a big fan of Israeli bonds. Um, so anyway, a little bit of news. You got the brass check update, how we're doing on the book. You got our analysis of the Iran situation. And then you have this little tidbit on something really important that belongs in the news, that is not in the news. It is a rare podcaster. I'm not the only one, but I'm one of the very few that will talk about this Howard Lutnick guy, which is crazy. He's Secretary of Commerce of the United States. He was head of Cantor Fitzgerald. He's a buddy of Epstein and a buddy of Silverstein. And we have to ask about those stock options that were sold right before the crash. Who bought those? Who had the sophistication to do something like that? Not saying it was Ludnick, but somebody very sophisticated with very deep pockets. No, there aren't many people that casually spend millions of dollars on put options. It's a small number of people, believe me. Um, and I think people in Ludnick's circle and Silverstein's circle, there's probably people within his circle that do. So anyway, that's the news, and the book is cranking along. Thank you for everybody that continues to support us. We've been on a bunch of shows. As you know, we're coming up on the 5th anniversary of the U.S. lockdown, which was kicked off by none other than Gavin Newsom in California. And then our great Governor Andrew Cuomo locked everything down here in New York State. And then we had the the demons in Michigan and elsewhere, uh, uh, put their 2 cents in, and then the rest of the nation, for the most part, followed. Of course, that was 5 years ago. Since then, of course, we've written and published the Nuremberg Code. Um, we put that out with Vera Sharav, who's a veteran human rights advocate, especially in the area of medical abuse. And she's also a Holocaust survivor. When she was a little girl, they came and they took her family away. Her father died in a camp. She was separated from her mother when she was a little girl, didn't see her mother for years and years and years. Um, she's in her 80s now. She's awesome, still kicking. We put that book out together. I took my writings and podcasts from 2020. Uh, those are the books called Unraveling the COVID Con. I just have to say this, there's a lot of people posing as resistors who in 2020 and 2021 were waving the pro-COVID flag, and now they've changed and now they're cashing in on some of the research that others did early on. Got that book out. We also have the book Fauci's the film Fauci's First Fraud, August 2020, a full year before Kennedy came, more than a year before Kennedy came out with the real Anthony Fauci. I have to point out that I'm a contributor to that book, and that I was a major marketing partner, not minor, not consequential, inconsequential, major. So that was the best. And as I told him before the book even hit the marketplace, I said, this will be the biggest selling book of your career. And it is by a factor of 10 or more. There's nothing that he's written that's come even close. And I have all the emails, by the way, between me and him and his publisher and the people at CHD. It's very clear who was behind that book in a big way. So that came out. What else? And then What the Nurses Saw, which, despite being ignored by certainly the mass media, but most podcasters, I've been on some podcasts, um, but for the most part, the $1 million podcasters um, have yet, including John Campbell and so many others, are doing their best to pretend that book doesn't exist. But I believe we've got over 500 reviews, some crazy number of reviews, which tells you how many we've sold. So people are buying and reading that book, so that's really good. Um, anyway, we're coming up on the fifth anniversary uh, very soon. It'll just be like 10 or 12 days, and how quickly people forget. Um, but we have to keep fighting. We have to keep being informed and educated. Um, we have to realize that they could fire up that machine tomorrow. Like we haven't put it really a scratch. What has happened is tens of millions of Americans know that something is really wrong and are less likely to just get in line and follow the orders from above. Is that going to be enough to stop the next one? I don't know. Certainly, we will certainly start off in a much better position than we did in early 2020 when nobody was listening and everybody was going along with it. So, um, but of course, they may come up with new means to suppress. So we'll find out. But anyway, working on the book. Hope the book will be out here soon. It'll be a big relief. I think you'll find it amazing. I have to say, I'm amazed by the things I've dug up. Um, uh, yeah, vaccination injuries do cause severe autism, and they are covering it up, and that's what this book is about. Um, it shows how they're covering it up. It shows the mechanism, and I mean, you can't find this stuff anywhere. It shows the mechanism by which these injuries create these serious neurological conditions, and it even talks about some workable methodologies to help these kids, which are completely ignored, even especially, I have to say, I was going to say even by, but almost especially by the so-called resistance. They don't want to hear about cures or treatments. They don't want to hear about it because I don't know why they don't want to hear about it, but they don't want to hear about it. But it will be in a book at last that you it depends on the extent of the injury. It depends on when the injury occurred. But there are possibilities of recovery, maybe not full recovery, but there are things that can be done. And for some reason, that information has been really suppressed. And once my book is out, at least the book will be out. It won't be suppressed anymore. But I defy you to find any books that talk about the nature of the injury, the origin, how it works, why the injury looks the way it does, and things you can do to reverse the injury. That just doesn't, that just, for whatever reason, that doesn't exist. I think doctors are too afraid to mention it. Lay people are afraid they don't know enough. Well, I'm not afraid of either of those two things. So it will be in a book, and that's what this first book will be. And then when that's done, that book will be called "The Reality of Vaccine Injury and Severe Autism." And then when that's done, then I'm going to go back to the opus, the magnum opus called Diabolical Errors, and I'm changing it to the strange and unsettling um, history of modern medicine. I'm just instead of so I'm moving the vaccination stuff into the book that's coming out soon. But then I realized this other book, I'm just going through the whole history of modern medicine, which began roughly in the mid 1800s. Medicine really changed, and people don't ever talk about that. And it doesn't have Rockefellers are part of the deal, but it's by no means the whole story. So, and I also get into specifically what the Rockefellers did to pervert medicine. You know, everyone kind of mentions it, they kind of refer to it, but they don't really get into the weeds. And the second book goes way into the details, so that it's absolutely crystal clear to anybody who cares and wants to know exactly how we got to where we are today. And what I said to Tom Renz today is basically lawyers and government officials, um, two parties that are utterly ignorant and oblivious to issues of human health, have taken over medicine. It's really that simple. They tell the doctors what to do based on, whoever can bribe them better, and that becomes medical procedure. That's the way it is. And an honest doctor will let you know that. Good luck finding an honest doctor. Um, and that's where we are. And that is a process that started in the late 1900s, late 1800s, and started accelerating under the Rockefellers, started really accelerating after World War II. Um, and it's just been growing and growing and growing. And that is why we had the COVID catastrophe and other public health catastrophes that we've had that on a smaller scale. It's really no more complicated than that. Once you take the power away from physicians and you don't let them make up their own mind based on working with the patient in front of them, and once you impose, bureaucratic dictates on how you will treat everybody, it's insane. It's not, never in the history of medicine has medicine been practiced that way until our modern era, where now everybody's the same, everybody gets the same treatment, whether it makes sense or not. They're doing it on statistics. Hey, it helps 70% of the people. It cripples 10% and kills another 20%. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's do it. I mean, it's not quite that bad, but it's pretty darn close. Our medicine, just I'll sum this up and let everybody get going. Um, our medicine for human beings in 2026 most closely resembles veterinary medicine as it's practiced in factory farms, which means we don't give a rat's ass about any individual animal. We have sort of a statistical model about what we're trying to achieve, and everybody gets the same treatment, whether it makes sense or not. And the ones that are injured or killed or paralyzed or permanently disabled by this treatment, well, we just throw them in a heap, just like the Nazis did. And never forget, it's the fifth anniversary of the COVID lockdowns. I will send you the Tom Wren show as soon as it's available. We talk in depth about the parallels between Nazi medicine and modern medicine, and you'll see where we're at. We'll see where we're at, and the answer is to become as knowledgeable about health as you can, to take care of your health, which means, consuming good things, not consuming bad things, and make sure you are moving every day. Um, those things will help a great deal. And unfortunately, we have a civilization that's structured in such a way that, I mean, I live where I can walk out the door and take a 3 mile walk. It's like I don't have to get in a car to go for a walk. I'm not an odd guy walking in a suburban development or walking through an urban hellscape. I have this benefit of being able to walk out the door and go for a walk. Very few Americans have that. And that is one of the best medicines in the world, is just going for a long, long, goodish daily walk. It's a big help. It's a big help. So anyway, that's that. Thank you for listening. To everybody that supports Brass Check, thank you very much. If you don't support us, consider doing so. Um, I don't recount all these things that we've done just to pat myself on the back, but to let our supporters, remind our supporters, we're actually doing a lot of work, and to encourage other people that are looking for some way to do something positive. If you don't have the time to do research and publication and promotion, which is a full-time job plus, and you want to pitch in and help, one way to do that is help the people that are doing it, whether it's me or somebody else that you value. We don't get the political system we deserve. We don't get the news media deserve. We don't get the education system we deserve. We don't get the medical system we deserve. We don't get the food quality we deserve, but we do get the news media we deserve. Everybody's got money for the uh, newspaper, the internet connection, the various subscriptions. Everybody's got money for that. But are you going to support the people that are supporting you? That's the question. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Hopefully, I'll have some good news on the book.